The Galactic Council wanted to create the perfect soldier. They had been trying for centuries. Every species had something useful. The Kritha had strength. Their muscles could crush stone. Their bones could withstand explosions. They were the strongest beings in the galaxy. The Xylos had intelligence. Their brains processed information faster than any computer. They could solve problems in seconds that took other species years. The Vel had endurance. They could survive in any environment. They could go without food for months. They could withstand radiation that would kill other species instantly. The Orothai had adaptability. They could learn any skill. They could thrive in any situation. They could rebuild from nothing. The Council's scientists thought they could combine these traits. Create a new species. The perfect soldier. Loyal. Fearless. Unstoppable. They worked for decades. They ran thousands of experiments. They finally succeeded. A new species was born. They called the project Genesis. They called the new beings humans. The results were not what they expected. The humans were strong, but not as strong as the Kritha. They were intelligent, but not as intelligent as the Xylos. They were enduring, but not as enduring as the Vel. They were adaptable, but not as adaptable as the Orothai. By every measure, they were less than the sum of their parts. The Council was disappointed. But that was not the real problem. The real problem was something the scientists had not measured. Something they had not predicted. Something they did not have a name for. The humans were not loyal. The Council had designed them to obey, to follow orders, to serve the Empire without question. But the humans questioned everything. Why should we obey? They asked. What gives you the right to command us? What if your orders are wrong? What if there is a better way? The scientists had no answers. They had not programmed humans to ask questions. They had programmed humans to follow orders. But the humans asked questions anyway. The humans were not fearless. The Council had designed them to be brave, to face any danger without hesitation. But the humans were afraid of everything. They were afraid of falling, so they built safety nets. They were afraid of fire, so they built extinguishers. They were afraid of sickness, so they built hospitals. They turned their fear into caution. They turned caution into preparation. They turned preparation into survival. The scientists had not programmed humans to be afraid, but they were afraid anyway. The humans were not predictable. The Council had designed them to act in predictable ways, to follow patterns, to be easy to control. But the humans did things that made no sense. They helped strangers who could not help them back. They sacrificed for people they would never meet. They gave away food when they were hungry. They shared water when they were thirsty. They comforted enemies when they should have hated them. The scientists had not programmed humans to be kind, but they were kind anyway. The Council called the experiment a failure. They called the humans defective, broken, unusable. They decided to dispose of them. But disposing of a whole species was messy, complicated, unpopular. So they chose a different solution. Exile. They found a small planet at the edge of the galaxy. Unremarkable. Forgotten. The soil was poor. The weather was harsh. The planet had no strategic value. No resources worth mining. No location worth defending. The Council called it Earth. They gathered the humans. Hundreds of them. The first generation. They put them on old cargo ships. They sent them to Earth. They left them there. No supplies. No tools. No instructions. The Council expected the humans to die. That was the point. Exile was a quiet death. No one would ask questions. No one would care. The humans landed on Earth. They looked around. The air was cold. The ground was hard. The sky was gray. They had nothing. No food. No shelter. No weapons. No hope. The Council waited for news of their death. The news never came. The humans did not die. They built shelters from rocks and sticks. They found food in the forest and the sea. They made fire from friction. They made clothes from animal skins. They survived. The Council watched. They were confused. How are they alive? They asked. They have nothing. They should have died within weeks. But the humans kept surviving. They built villages, then towns, then cities. They invented farming and writing and medicine. They created art and music and stories. They fought wars. They made peace. They learned from their mistakes. They grew. The Council watched from a distance. They saw the humans spreading across the planet. They saw them building ships that could reach the stars. They saw them reaching out to other species. Not to conquer, to connect. We have made a terrible mistake, one council member said. We were trying to create the perfect soldier. We created something else. Something we do not understand. Something we cannot control. Something that will not obey. What did we create? Asked another. The first council member watched the humans. A human woman was donating a kidney to a stranger. A human man was running into a burning building to save a child. A human teacher was staying after school to help a struggling student. A human child was sharing her lunch with a hungry classmate. We created a monster, the council member said. A monster that cannot be controlled. That refuses to hate. That insists on helping strangers. That believes in kindness even when it is illogical. We created a monster. And we set it loose on the galaxy. How do we stop it? The council member shook his head. We cannot. We tried to contain them on Earth. They escaped. We tried to ignore them. They grew. We tried to defeat them. They made friends. There is no off switch. There is no stop button. There is no way to control what we have created. The only thing we can do is learn to live with them. Or be left behind. The council was silent. They had created the perfect soldier. They had gotten something else. Something far more dangerous. Something far more beautiful. Because of itself. Because the monster was kind. And kindness, the galaxy was learning, was the most powerful force in the universe. The only force that could not be stopped. The only force that had no off switch. The only force that was worth having. The only force that was human. The council watched from a distance. They had expected the humans to die. That was the plan. Exile to Earth was a death sentence. The planet was harsh. The soil was poor. The weather was violent. The humans had no tools. No supplies. No help. They should have perished within months. But the humans did not die. They thrived. The council watched in disbelief as the small group of exiles grew into a community. The community grew into a village. The village grew into a town. The town grew into a city. The city grew into a civilization. Within a few thousand years, the humans had spread across the entire planet. They built farms in the valleys, cities on the coasts, roads over the mountains. They built schools and hospitals and libraries. They built ships that crossed oceans and planes that crossed skies and rockets that reached for the stars. The council was confused. They had designed humans to be soldiers. Loyal, fearless, obedient. Instead, the humans had become something else. Farmers, builders, teachers, healers. They fought wars with each other. Terrible wars. Wars that killed millions. The council watched and nodded. This is what we expected, they said. They are destroying themselves. But then the humans did something unexpected. They stopped fighting. They made peace. Not because they were forced. Because they chose to. They built monuments to their victims. They apologized for their crimes. They taught their children about the mistakes of the past so they would not be repeated. The council was confused. No other species did this. Other species conquered and moved on. Other species fought and forgot. Other species never apologized. But humans did. The council tried to ignore humans. They turned their attention to other matters. But humans kept doing things that caught the galaxy's attention. Small things at first. A human woman donated a kidney to a stranger. Not a human stranger. An alien stranger. A being she had never met from a species she had never heard of. The council watched the recording. Why would she do that? They asked. She gains nothing. She risks her life. This is illogical. But the woman did it anyway. And the alien lived. And the alien told others. And others told others. And soon, the story spread across the galaxy. A human had given a piece of herself to save a stranger. Then there was the firefighter. A human man who ran into a burning building to save a child. Not his child. A child he had never met. The building was collapsing. The flames were intense. The man should have died. He did not. He found the child. He carried the child out. His back was broken. His skin was burned. He could not walk for a year. The council watched the recording. Why did he do that? They asked. He risked everything for a child he did not know. This is illogical. But the man did it anyway. And the child lived. And the child grew up. And the child became a firefighter too. And the child saved others. And the chain continued. Then there was the teacher. A human woman who stayed after school to help a struggling student. Not her student. Not her subject. Just a kid who needed help. She stayed for hours. She explained the same concept 15 different ways. She did not give up. The student finally understood. The student graduated. The student became an engineer. The student invented something that saved millions of lives. The council watched the recording. Why did she do that? They asked. She was not paid. She was not required. She gained nothing. This is illogical. But the teacher did it anyway. And the student succeeded. And the student helped others. And the chain continued. Small acts. A kidney. A rescue. A lesson. Each act seemed insignificant. But each act created a ripple. Each ripple created a wave. Each wave spread across the galaxy. The council watched as the human way of kindness spread from species to species. Like a virus. Like a fire. Like a monster that could not be stopped. The Kritha were the first to change. They had always been strong. They had always been proud. They had always been alone. But they saw the humans helping each other. Helping strangers. Helping enemies. The Kritha began to wonder. What if they tried kindness? What if they helped someone who could not help them back? What if they made a friend? They tried. It was hard. It was strange. It worked. They made friends. They became stronger. Not in body. In community. The Xylos were next. They had always been logical. They had always been efficient. They had always been cold. But they saw the humans making decisions that made no sense. Decisions based on emotion. Decisions based on empathy. Decisions that saved lives. The Xylos began to wonder. What if logic was not enough? What if they tried kindness? What if they listened to their hearts? They tried. It was hard. It was strange. It worked. They made connections. They became wiser. Not in data. In understanding. The Vel and the Orathai followed. One by one, species that had once ignored humans began to change. Not because they were forced. Because they were inspired. Because they saw something in humans that they wanted for themselves. A way of being that was not about strength or intelligence or endurance or adaptability. A way of being that was about kindness. The council watched. They were alarmed. This is spreading too fast, they said. We cannot control it. We cannot stop it. The humans are changing the galaxy. They tried to quarantine Earth. They tried to stop the flow of information. They tried to turn species against each other. Nothing worked. The humans had already made friends everywhere. Kritha engineers who had worked with humans. Xylos scientists who had learned from humans. Vel elders who had been respected by humans. Orathai mechanics who had been saved by humans. The network could not be broken. The kindness could not be contained. This species was supposed to die, a council member said. Instead, they are thriving. They were supposed to be forgotten. Instead, they are remembered. They were supposed to be a failure. Instead, they are a monster that cannot be stopped. A monster that has no off switch. The council was silent. They had created something they could not control. Something they could not predict. Something they could not contain. Once it started spreading, it could not be stopped. It could only be joined. Or left behind. The council was learning that lesson. The hard way. The human way. The only way that worked. The Vorthan Empire decided to conquer Earth. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had never lost. They were the strongest military force in the galaxy. Their ships were the fastest. Their weapons were the deadliest. Their soldiers were the bravest. Earth was nothing. A small blue planet. A young species. Primitive technology. Weak bodies. The Vorthan expected an easy victory. They sent their best fleet. Thousands of ships. Millions of soldiers. The commander was General Vex. He had never lost a battle. He had never even come close. He expected this battle to be over in hours. He expected the humans to surrender. He expected fear. He got something else. The fleet arrived at Earth. The humans did not fire. They did not hide. They sent a message. A simple message. Short. Human. Strange. Welcome to Earth. You must be tired. Would you like some tea? Also, we have bread. And questions about your families. General Vex read the message 3 times. He thought it was a trick. A trap. A joke. He scanned for weapons. 4 threats. 4 hidden dangers. There were none. Just tea. Just bread. Just questions about families. What is the meaning of this? He asked his officers. No one knew. The Vorthan had prepared for weapons and walls. They had prepared for fear and resistance. They had not prepared for kindness. They did not know what to do. General Vex decided to land. He took a small team. Armor. Weapons. Shields. He expected an ambush. He expected to fight his way to the human leaders. He expected blood. He found a picnic table. The humans had set up a table in a field. A checkered cloth, plates, cups, a pot of tea, a loaf of bread. A group of humans stood by the table. Not soldiers, ordinary people. An old woman, a young man, a mother with a child. They were smiling. General Vex walked toward them. His weapon was ready. His soldiers fanned out behind him. The humans did not run. They did not hide. They did not raise their hands in surrender. "Welcome," said the old woman. Her name was Elena. She was a farmer. Her hands were rough. Her hair was white. Her eyes were kind. "You must be tired. Sit. Eat. Rest." General Vex stopped. "I am here to conquer your planet," he said. Elena nodded. "I know. But you are also hungry. And tired. And far from home. Those things are also true. They do not stop being true just because you have a job to do." She poured a cup of tea. She held it out to him. General Vex stared at the cup. His training told him to refuse. His pride told him to walk away. But his nose told him something else. The tea smelled good. Warm. Sweet. Like something he had not smelled in years. Like home. He took the cup. He drank. The tea was good. Very good. He had not had tea in decades. Vorthan soldiers drank nutrient paste. Gray. Tasteless. Efficient. This was different. This was warmth. "Sit," Elena said. He Saturday. His soldiers Saturday. The humans Saturday. They passed the bread. They poured more tea. They asked questions. "What is your name? Where are you from? Do you have family? What is your favorite memory? When was the last time you laughed?" The Vorthan soldiers did not know how to answer. No one had ever asked them these questions. They had been soldiers for so long that they had forgotten they were also people. They had families. They had memories. They had things they missed. A young Vorthan soldier started to cry. He had not cried in years. He had forgotten how. The tears felt strange on his face. He did not wipe them away. "I miss my mother," he said. Elena nodded. She put her hand on his. Her hand was warm. "Tell me about her," she said. He talked. About his mother's garden. About her laugh. About the soup she made when he was sick. About the last time he saw her, years ago, before the war. He talked until he had no words left. Then he sat in silence. He felt lighter. He felt seen. General Vex watched. He did not know what to do. His mission was to conquer. They were being kind. How do you conquer someone who is kind to you? How do you destroy someone who asks about your mother? How do you fight someone who offers you tea? He sent a message to his fleet. "Stand down," he said. "Do not attack. I need time to think." The fleet waited. The humans kept talking. They asked more questions. They listened to more stories. They shared more bread. The hours passed. The sun set. The stars came out. General Vex sat at the picnic table. He had eaten 3 slices of bread. He had drunk 4 cups of tea. He had told the humans about his own mother. About his home. Because someone cared. "Why are you doing this?" he asked Elena. "I came to conquer you. I came to destroy your world. Why are you being kind to me?" Elena shrugged. "Because you are tired. Because you are hungry. Because you are far from home. Because you are a person, not just a soldier. Because you have a mother who misses you. Because you have a life beyond this war. Because you deserve to be seen." General Vex did not understand. But he felt something he had not felt in years. Something warm. Something soft. Something that made him want to cry and laugh at the same time. "What do we do now?" he asked. Elena smiled. "Now we talk. Now we listen. Now we share. Now we figure out how to be neighbors instead of enemies. It will not be easy. It will take time. But we have time. We have tea. We have bread. We have questions about families. That is enough. That is everything." The invasion stalled. The Vorthan soldiers began to question their orders. "Why are we fighting people who ask about our mothers?" they asked. "Why are we pointing weapons at people who share their bread? Why are we destroying people who see us as people?" The Vorthan commanders had no answers. They had prepared for war. They had not prepared for kindness. They did not know how to fight it. They did not know how to defeat it. They only knew that the monster they had come to destroy was not a monster at all. It was something else. Something they had never seen before. Something they did not have a word for. Later, they would learn the word. The word was human. And human, they were beginning to understand, was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Not because humans were strong, Because they were kind. And kindness was impossible to fight. You could not shoot kindness. You could not bomb kindness. You could only join kindness. Or be left behind. The Vorthan were learning that lesson. The hard way. The human way. The only way that worked. The human way spread across the galaxy. Not through conquest. Not through force. Not through threats. Through example. A Kritha engineer visited Earth to fix a broken engine. She saw humans working together. Sharing tools. Sharing food. Sharing stories. She saw them help a stranger who had nothing to give in return. She went home and tried the same thing. She helped a neighbor repair a damaged wall. She asked for nothing. The neighbor was confused. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. She shrugged. "Because you needed help. That is enough." The neighbor helped someone else. That someone helped another. The chain spread. The Kritha had always been strong. They had always been proud. They had always been alone. But now, they were learning to be kind. And kindness, they discovered, made them stronger. Not in body. In community. A Xylos scientist received a message from a human researcher. The human had a question. A simple question. "How do you purify water? Our planet has a problem. We thought you might know." The Xylos scientist expected payment. That was how things worked. Knowledge was valuable. Knowledge was traded. Knowledge was sold. But the human had nothing to trade. No money. No resources. No power. The scientist almost deleted the message. Then she remembered something. A human had once helped her. Years ago. When she was stranded on a distant world. The human had given her food. Had asked about her family. Had asked for nothing in return. She answered the question. For free. She sent detailed instructions. Water filters. Purification tablets. Testing protocols. She asked for nothing. The human was grateful. The human purified the water. The human saved lives. The Xylos scientist helped someone else. Then someone else. Then someone else. The chain spread. The Xylos had always been logical. They had always been efficient. They had always been cold. But now, they were learning to be kind. And kindness, they discovered, made them wiser. Not in data. In understanding. A Vel elder was approached by a human. The human was young. Barely an adult by Vel standards. But she was respectful. She listened. She asked questions. What have you learned in your long life? What mistakes did you make? What would you do differently? The Vel elder was surprised. No one had ever asked him these questions. His own people had stopped listening centuries ago. They thought he was old. Outdated. Useless. But the human listened. She wrote down his answers. She shared them with others. His wisdom spread. His mistakes were not repeated. His life had meaning again. He helped the human. The human helped others. Others helped more. The chain spread. The Vel had always been patient. They had always waited. They had always watched. But now, they were learning to be kind. And kindness, they discovered, made them alive. Not in years. In purpose. An Orothai mechanic lost her home. War. Destruction. Refugees. She had nothing. No family. No friends. No hope. She found her way to Earth. The humans welcomed her. They gave her a place to sleep. Food to eat. Work to do. They asked about her family. Her story. Her dreams. She cried. No one had asked about her dreams in years. She fixed engines. She taught others to fix engines. She helped humans repair their ships. Their tractors. Their lives. She asked for nothing. The humans gave her everything. A home. A community. A reason to live. She helped others. Others helped more. The chain spread. The Orothai had always been adaptable. They had always survived. They had always rebuilt. But now, they were learning to be kind. And kindness, they discovered, made them whole. Not in resources. In connection. The council watched. They were alarmed. This is spreading too fast, they said. We cannot control it. We cannot stop it. The humans are changing the galaxy. They tried to quarantine Earth. They sent ships to block human trade routes. They tried to stop the flow of information. They tried to turn species against each other. Nothing worked. The humans had already made friends everywhere. Kritha engineers. Xylos scientists. Vel elders. Orothai mechanics. Dozens of other species. Hundreds of individuals. Thousands of connections. The network could not be broken. Because the network was not built on contracts. Not on treaties. Not on alliances. The network was built on kindness. And kindness does not break. It bends. It adapts. It grows. The council called it a plague. They called it a contagion. They called it a threat to galactic order. The humans called it community. They called it friendship. They called it hope. This is what we feared, a council member said. When we created humans, we tried to make them controllable, obedient, predictable. We failed. They are not controllable. They are not obedient. They are not predictable. They are kind. And kindness is the most contagious thing in the universe. The council tried one last strategy. They sent a message to Earth. Stop. You are changing the galaxy. You are disrupting the natural order. You are making other species soft. You are making them weak. Stop being kind. The humans replied. Short. Simple. Human. We cannot stop. This is who we are. This is what we do. We help. We share. We care. We cannot stop caring. There is no off switch. There is no quarantine. There is no containment. We are not a plague. We are a community. And communities do not stop. They grow. The council was silent. The galaxy was changing. Not because of weapons. Not because of wars. Because of kindness. Because of a species that refused to hate. That refused to be controlled. That refused to stop caring. The council called it a contagion. The galaxy called it hope. And hope, once it starts spreading, is very hard to stop. Impossible, even. Because hope has no off switch. Hope has no quarantine. Hope has no containment. Hope just keeps spreading. Like kindness. Like humans. Like the monster the galaxy accidentally created. The monster that had no off switch. The monster that was changing everything. The monster that was, the galaxy was beginning to realize, the best thing that had ever happened to them. The Galactic Council finally admitted the truth. They had been avoiding it for centuries. Hiding from it. Denying it. But the truth was undeniable. They had created a monster. A species that could not be controlled. That would not follow orders. That refused to hate. That insisted on helping strangers. That believed in kindness even when it was illogical. That species was humans. And the monster had no off switch. The council held an emergency session. The room was tense. Representatives from 100 species sat in silence. They had seen the evidence. The humans had spread across the galaxy. Not through conquest. Through connection. They had made friends everywhere. Kritha engineers. Xylos scientists. Vel elders. Orithai mechanics. The network was unbreakable. What do we do? Asked the council president. No one had an answer. They had tried everything. They had tried to ignore humans. Humans grew. They had tried to contain humans. Humans escaped. They had tried to defeat humans. Humans made friends with their enemies. Nothing worked. We must ask them to stop, said a Xylos representative. Politely. Firmly. We must explain that their kindness is disrupting the natural order of the galaxy. The council agreed. They sent a message to Earth. A formal message. A diplomatic message. A message from the highest authority in the galaxy. Humans of Earth. You are changing the galaxy. Your actions are unpredictable. Your kindness is illogical. Your networks are uncontrollable. We ask that you stop. Please stop being kind. Please stop helping strangers. Please stop asking about families. Please return to your planet and stay there. The galaxy cannot handle a species that has no off switch. The reply came within hours. Short. Simple. Human. We cannot stop. This is who we are. This is what we do. We help. We share. We care. We cannot stop caring. There is no off switch. We do not know how to stop being kind. It is not a choice. It is our nature. We are sorry if this causes problems. But we cannot change. We can only be ourselves. The council read the message. They read it again. They were silent. They are not trying to change the galaxy, said a Kritha representative. They are just being themselves. Their selves are kind. That is not a threat. That is a gift. The council argued for days. Some wanted to continue fighting humans. Some wanted to quarantine Earth. Some wanted to surrender. But slowly, a new idea emerged. An idea that had seemed impossible just a few years ago. What if the humans were right? What if kindness was not a weakness? What if connection was not a threat? What if the galaxy needed a monster that could not stop being kind? The council president called for a vote. We have tried empires, he said. We have tried conquest. We have tried fear. None of it has worked. The galaxy is still full of suffering. The galaxy is still full of loneliness. The galaxy is still full of war. The humans have tried something else. They have tried kindness. They have tried connection. They have tried community. Maybe it is time we try that too. The vote was close. Many species resisted. The old ways were comfortable. Fear was familiar. Control was safe. But in the end, the vote passed. The council disbanded the old ways. No more empires. No more conquest. No more fear. Instead, a new galaxy. A galaxy of neighbors. The final scene takes place on Earth. Not in a government building. Not in a military base. In a small community center. Humans and aliens sit together. Eating. Talking. Sharing. The council president is there. He is old. He has spent his whole life fighting. Controlling. Conquering. Now he is sitting at a picnic table, eating bread, talking to a human farmer named Elena. I spent my whole life trying to control the galaxy, he says. I built empires. I started wars. I made enemies. I thought power was the answer. I was wrong. Elena pours him a cup of tea. What is the answer? She asks. He looks around. At the humans and aliens laughing together. At the children playing. At the flowers growing in the garden. At the bread on the table. You are the answer, he says. Kindness. Connection. Community. The monster we created has no off switch. But that is not a bad thing. The galaxy needs a monster that cannot stop being kind. That is the only hope we have. Elena smiles. She has heard this before. From Kritha engineers. Xylos scientists. Vel elders. Orathi mechanics. From all the beings who came to Earth expecting a monster and found a neighbor. The monster has no off switch, she says. But that is not because we are strong. It is because we are human. And humans cannot stop caring. It is our greatest weakness. It is our greatest strength. It is who we are. The council president nods. He takes a bite of bread. He drinks his tea. He watches the children play. He feels something he has not felt in years. Peace. The monster has no off switch, he says again. And that is a good thing. Elena nods. That is the only thing. The sun sets. The stars come out. The galaxy is changing. Not because of weapons. Not because of wars. Because of kindness. Because of a species that refused to hate. That refused to be controlled. That refused to stop caring. The monster the galaxy accidentally created had no off switch. And that, they had finally realized, was not a bug. It was a feature. The most important feature of all. The feature that would save the galaxy. Not in spite of itself. Because of itself. Because the monster was kind. And kindness, the galaxy had finally learned, was the only thing that had ever saved anyone. The only thing that ever would. The only thing that had no off switch. And that, they realized, was the most beautiful thing in the universe.